Welcome to the show. It's a wonderful day out there. It's Wednesday. Welcome to Protect and Serve, brought to you by the New Jersey Urban Crime Foundation. Protect and Serve, where we're having conversations about what's going on in the community. We're talking about what's going on with the police and how they respond to the community and how the community responds to the police. And we ask real questions and try to get real answers here. We try to give you the unadulterated truth about what's going on in the relationship between police and the community. So we welcome you to the show today. We have our expert commentators. Unfortunately, we're going to offer prayers up for Brother Tony Cox, who lost his mother. He's on his way down to Florida. And, he is in our prayers. We know how it is when we lose someone. How your heart can be burdened. And we're just praying that he has traveling mercy on his way down to Florida right now, especially going down there with a high rate of COVID. So we're just praying for his safe return. And Sister Stephanie, of course, had a family emergency. But listen, the show still goes on. We're still here. We're still looking to take your questions. We have a guest on tonight who's doing great things in the community. He'll be on a little bit later. His name is Dupre Kelly, DoItAll Kelly from Lords of the Underground. Now I know I'm telling my age, and but listen, he's a good brother. He's still relevant and doing things in the community. And once you're out there, you're out there. People know who you are. But tonight, I want to start the show off with a recap. So much going on in the community. We know that there's been arrest and the murder of Rashawn Brooks down in Georgia. Several charges have been lodged against the officer. The other officer was arrested, was charged, but I believe that he's became a cooperating witness, which is a change. It's a big step. And what we're looking to is to see how this thing plays out, because we understand that one of the congressmen or the senators from that state is asking for an independent prosecutor. Why? Because of the nature of the charges that were lodged against the officer. It's not unusual that the request for a special prosecutor is made, but it's normally made by the community because they see a conflict of interest. I don't know what the conflict of interest is. You have a DA who wasn't involved in the investigation, but there's some things going on there that we have to watch very carefully. That's going to be a very interesting case that we need to watch, and we are watching it from here. Protect and Serve is watching it from here. The other case that we like to talk about, there was a video on the internet, on social media, that involved a young lady who was stopped by the police. And this was in Tampa City, Florida. And in Tampa City, Florida, she was stopped by the police, and she was driving a stolen vehicle. But what's interesting is that she recorded the event, and the police officer recorded the event. And we hope to have that video later to show you the contrast between what is perceived and what's going on. With that particular incident, let's be real. Let's be real. We know that sometimes we're involved in things. We have certain people who do things and don't always tell us and put us in a bad situation. It happens. And in this situation, the young lady was driving a car. It was a rent-a-car, and it was reported stolen. She got the attention of a local police officer. He proceeded to pull her over, and that's when the story got interesting. Now, one thing I did in researching Tampa City Police is that I went on their website, and I was very impressed as a police department that they had everything laid out. If you visit their website, they're in their attempts to be transparent. They're very open with everything that they're doing. They have even their standard operating procedures up there. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing when you have that open to the public, so people understand what you're doing in the community and how things are supposed to be going. There's a written policy on how police officers are supposed to correspond and respond and act when they're out in the community, engaging the community during the performance of their duties. And I found that to be very impressive. I found it to be very factual and very helpful because in the event that you have a situation, you can go there and basically see where you stand, basically. And in most situations, most towns, they don't do that. And I commend the department for doing that. Their department who has had some issues, and it was brought to the public. The public brought that to the leadership in the police department, and the police department made changes. And this is one of the changes that they made, and one of the things that they instituted on their website. That's Tampa City Police. So back to the case. Last week, we gave a very informative live on what to do when stopped by the police. And I got a lot of comments during the show, after the show. Some felt that, by being compliant, that they were being submissive. And what do you do when if the police are aggressive or the police are disrespectful? It's not right that we stand back and we stand down. Well, the thing is that, and I shared this, as police officers, we ourselves as police officers, when I was on the job and I encountered a police officer, we all encountered bad police officers that had attitudes that were disrespectful. And the thing that I told you, the things that were mentioned on the live, which I'm getting ready to say now, are the same things that I will tell you again. We live in America, and we know that there are issues with some police officers, some police departments, and people of color. We understand that their treatment of people of color are not in line with how they would treat others. And they could be very aggressive toward people of color. We understand that. They have killed people of color. They have falsely arrested people of color. We know that. My concern as a law enforcement professional and now as a public safety official is to make sure that you or your children survive the encounter. Now, I know that it's hard, that shouldn't be what I'm telling you, but I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth based on my experience and my knowledge of what's going on and what I've seen and what I've investigated. Your job, unfortunately, is to survive the encounter. It's crazy, but that's the truth of the matter. It's not to win the ticket or debate the ticket there at the scene. It's to survive the encounter with the police on a traffic stop, unfortunately. Now, most of the time, you would get you get pulled over, you get a summons, you go on your way. But in that one particular instance where you or your child faces a police officer who has issues or has a problem and is really out there as far as the way they're treating you and the way they're handling the situation, you need to understand that. You need to recognize that that's what's going on, and you need to comply so that you can survive that encounter and go back and deal with it through the other means that are available to you, which are signing a complaint through internal affairs, follow up with the prosecutor's office, with the state attorney general's office. You have a lot of options that are available to you. It's not the place to debate the ticket on the street. I knew Title 39. I knew an officer was wrong for writing a ticket, but it wasn't my job to debate him there. I knew where to debate him. And believe it or not, the fact that I had a weapon on me and was a police officer made this situation even more difficult, because you never know how folks are. So when we're police, well, I'm retired, but when we would get pulled over, and even now as a retired officer, when the police officer pulls me over, he's in charge of the scene. He's in charge of the stop. As I said before, it's not a right to drive. It's a privilege to drive. So when you accept that privilege, that driver's license, you are giving the officers, you're giving him some access to you to do what you need to do, or what he needs to do. He needs to conduct the investigation. And the main thing is that, like I said, 90%, 85 to 90% of officers are good people. They're good officers. But you have to understand, you're not the only person they dealt with. They dealt with people before you that might have been a robbery suspect, maybe in the first 4 hours of their shift. They might have been dealing with something else. So when they come upon you, they're cautious because, like you, human survival is the human preservation, life preservation is the first instinct of everybody. We all want to live. The body refuses, was not made to die, actually, but it continues to want to fight. And when we're in fight or flight mode, most of the time humans, we will fight. So I need you to understand, I'm not asking you to be submissive. I'm not asking you to be submissive to the point where they can just disrespect you and there's no recourse. No, there's called demeanor complaints. Officers are supposed to conduct themselves professional at all times. And anytime they do not do that, there are steps in place that you can file a complaint against that officer at any police center. They cannot refuse to take your complaint. If you have a complaint against an officer, they cannot refuse to take it. You can ask for a supervisor to come to the scene, but if they say a supervisor can't come to the scene because there's an incident going on in the town and it's a legitimate reason, then you wait, you go to the police headquarters and you file that complaint as soon as possible. But like I said, your job is to survive the encounter. So I wanted to say that. Now, the incident in Tampa was a young lady. She was driving a car. It was a rent-a-car. She got it from a friend. The friend did not pay for the car and was supposed to return the car. So what happens is when you don't return a rental car, it's considered a stolen vehicle. Police officers, now this is the thing. She drove past the police officer. She was an erratic driver. She was driving in an aggressive manner. Caught his eye because he's supposed to be there to enforce motor vehicle laws as well as everything else. He saw that she was committing a possible infraction. So he decided to pull her over. When he pulled her over, she pulled into someone's driveway and he got out of the vehicle. He pulled his sidearm from his holster and held it in a downward position, which we call cover suspect. So it was to cover the car because you don't know what you're dealing with. As someone who worked in the auto theft task force, someone who worked in a attack patrol, motor patrol, and went after numerous people, armed felons, and got into chases and all of that. Whenever I came upon a stolen vehicle, listen, in these days and times, people are not stealing cars to joyride. They're stealing cars to rob innocent victims like yourself. They're stealing cars to do shootings. I told you last week that I came off the Garden State Parkway in Irvington, and right in Irvington and in front of my very eyes, there were two cars. They were chasing each other. One car crashed. The second car, the occupants in the second car, this is at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, got out the car and started shooting at the first car. Both cars, I believe, were stolen. This is what they do with stolen cars. They use stolen cars to do carjackings. They don't have cars. That's why they take cars. So when you as a police officer, I need you to understand from the viewpoint of a police officer, when you come upon a stolen car, you don't know what's going on. And we watched the videotape and she claimed that the officer put a gun to her head. She, in this type of situation, she did everything that was not recommended to do in last week's show. Everything. She was videotaping. You have a right to videotape. But when you're being detained, your right to videotape is taken away because now you're being detained. She was videotaping and putting herself in a bad situation because the one thing he told her, keep your hands where we can see them. The first thing Detective Cox and Detective Treadwell told you, and I told you as well, because this is what I learned from our parents, my father, and from training, is that you keep your hands in a position where the officer can see them. We told you to put the windows down. If they're tinted windows, to put them down so the officer can see. Try to make the officer see that you're trying to work with him and comply with him for your own safety and for his or hers. So the thing is that he kept telling her to put her hands where he can see them, but it was more important for her to videotape the encounter and talk about it in a way that it was it was comical. I mean, all right, she was saying things like, you know, singing the song that they were singing during the protest. You were about to lose your job. Just carrying on. And I don't know about you, but when someone has a gun on me, it's serious. It's serious. And this is what was going on. So the thing was, we come to find out the car was stolen. He put her out. He explained it to her numerous times. She asked him to put down his gun. The officer's not going to put down his gun. It's not, it's against his training, and there's nothing wrong with him to protect himself or to cover the suspect. When the other officer arrived on the scene, they took the two ladies out of the car, were very professional, put them in cuffs because, for their own safety until they understood what was going on. They detained them, they put cuffs on them, placed them in their patrol car, proceeded to continue their investigation. Everything the officer did was by the book and was correct. I'm sorry that the way it was presented on social media, which could be deadly sometimes when folks that don't know, they presented it to the audience saying officer held them at gunpoint and they were compliant. Yes, they were compliant, but guess what? They were in a stolen vehicle. It was a confirmed stolen vehicle. Came back that the rental company had pressed charges against the person who had it. And in New Jersey, now this is the thing. In Florida, they understood and this is why I like what they did with this case. They put them in cuffs, investigated at the scene, towed the vehicle, but did not make the arrest. They did not make the arrest. Afterwards, the young lady started complying. She started telling him she was cooperating. She was communicating with the police officer. And the police officer saw that. Hey, listen, this happens. He understood. He knew what goes on. We know what goes on. He complied. He let her go. In New Jersey, they went above and beyond what we do in New Jersey. People in New Jersey, if you were in a stolen car, you're getting arrested and charged with receiving stolen property, period. Okay? That's it. It's not my job to be the judge and the jury. I'm there to do my job. I'm there to enforce the law. And the law says that if you're in receipt of stolen property, you go to court and that's where you hash that out. That's where you make a plea to the court. And then you'll see who your true friends are, because your real friend, the one that gave you the car, let's see if they come to court and testify on your behalf. So I commend the Tampa City Police Department on the way they handled that case. And I wish that we had more encounters like that in the community with our people, because of the fact that so many stops have gone bad. I have children. I have a son. I have a daughter. I have 3 daughters, and I'm concerned that when they get pulled over by the police, they might run up against, the wrong one. And I want to make sure that doesn't happen. So I try to convey to them what I'm conveying to you. I'm trying to give you everything that I would give my children, because I really want to see you survive. So I think we have the video, and what we're going to do is we're going to put the video up and let you look at it, and you can see everything that I was talking about. All right, let's roll the video if we have it. Let's roll it.
Y'all, I got pulled over and this cop is literally pointing a gun at me. He still didn't put his gun down. Literally. Exactly.
We're at 48th and Sly. Do not move, okay?
At 40th and Sly.
The car's coming back stolen. The car's coming back stolen. Just don't move, okay? Yeah, I ran the tag. It says it's stolen. Okay, just don't move. It says your car is stolen. Do not move. All right? Don't move.
K9 1251 from Sector F. Legal 1, send me the call.
Don't move.
10 4. He said they just pulled in somewhere at 40th and Sly.
We're at 40th and Sly. The car stopped in the driveway. Everyone's compliant right now. Just do not move, okay? Keep your hands where I can see them. I see that, okay? Just relax.
Radio 10-546. They're at 40th and Sly. Car is stopped in a driveway right now.
48 and Sly.
Everyone's compliant right now.
Passenger, keep your hands where I can see them, all right? I can't see them. I'm just asking you to keep them where I can see them.
707, is that 40 inside or 48 inside?
48.
10-4, it's going to be at 48 inside.
Lincoln 1.
Lincoln 1.
Yeah, the 20 comes back to
Yo, I
Lincoln
got pulled over and this cop is literally pointing a gun at me. He still didn't put his gun down.
Is that in the county or the
Literally.
radio?
County.
All right. So that's her her point of view. That's her point of view of what happened with the incident. That's what her personal feelings are about the cop is pointing the gun at her. He didn't put the gun down. It's been a couple of minutes. He's still pointing the gun at her. And so let me just say something about that. One, you saw it as I saw it from her camera and from the officer's camera. The gun was pointed toward the vehicle, but pointed down at the ground. If they were suspects who are people who came out shooting, the gun would very easily be raised up and the officer could exchange fire. But what he was in a position was cover suspect, which the gun was pointed in the way at the target, at the threat, possible threat, but it was not really pointed at them as she stated. The other thing was he explained to her from a distance why the stop was going on. He explained it not once, but he explained it a couple of times. He also requested that they stop moving and keep their hands in a position where he could see them. He was waiting for backup, which was the proper thing to do, because I find that when most officers try to approach a situation by themselves, right? If you go back and you look at most of the incidents where officers shot and killed somebody who was unarmed, is because they try to handle the situation by themselves. Two are always better than one. Just wait for your backup. Whatever few minutes they'll be there. Then you can handle the situation better. When officers try to handle the situation on their own, that's when things go airy. So we have to understand that the reason why there was a 4-minute wait was he was waiting for backup. So when he waited for backup, the officer got there, things changed. Things went a little bit better. The point of view from the officer was without the social media content that said that, that portrayed it a different way. I mean, you can look at something and see how it is if someone projects it to you that way. If you look at it from a different point of view, step back and look at it, then you can say, okay, wait a minute, it's not really that. And looking at this, because that was one of the things that was trying to get on the social media and try to, pick up steam. Looking at it, it didn't go anywhere because the Tampa City Police put out a video of themselves strictly from the officer's point of view, and it went on completely to the end where they with the young lady and her passenger, and they resolved the situation. They found out the situation. The car was towed. The two people were allowed to walk freely from the scene. As I said, in New Jersey, the law states that a person has to be charged with receiving stolen property. So, a lot of times, and I've seen it, good people just get in situations where folks just put them in bad situations. And unfortunately, this is one of them. So when you see that situation, when your kids, if you can find that on the internet, show your children that. Show them she did everything that she was not supposed to do. And check this, she's a military person. She should know better. She's in the military. She said she was in the military. She said she had PTSD. She had this, she had that. But in the military, you're trained, you're disciplined, even when you deal with cops. And let me just say this, in the military, you get picked on a lot by local cops. When I was in the Marines down in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and that's one of the things we worried about, whether you were black, green, yellow, purple, it didn't matter. The fact that you had that green uniform on, you were drawing fire. He was drawing fire and attention from the local sheriff. And he was a boss hog, big joker, just didn't like Marines. So we had to be careful. And we always learned that those things were the things that we had to be careful. We had to be compliant. We had to make sure that we didn't antagonize the situation, which in the other video, you'll see she antagonized the situation. If you go to the Tampa City Police Department and see the video that they posted explaining the situation, you'll see that she antagonized the situation. She almost got into a situation where it was going to be, it could have been a little airy for her, because she was antagonizing the officer. So we want to make sure when you have your children out there and you yourself encounter the police, your experience could be, a lot better than most of the ones that you see. I know as a police officer, when I walked up to a vehicle and the person tried to, make me see that they were trying, they've done this before. They knew that I pulled them over. I was in charge of the scene, that I was going to add, they had their credentials ready. They had the window down, they made it a little bit more comfortable. Now I'm still on alert. The police officer is still going to be on alert because sometimes folks will do that just to draw you away and draw your attention down. Then that's a different situation. That's what bad guys do. They have done it. We've trained for that. And we know that they do that. They try to take us off guard. And of course, they don't want to get caught and go to jail. So that's what they'll do. But when citizens get pulled over, sometimes citizens are trying, they understand the job that police officers have to do. They understand that it's dangerous. So they try to cooperate and say, listen, I'm going to help the officer out. I'm going to work with the officer. Most of the time, when you did something wrong, when you ran the red light, when you ran the stop sign, when you were speeding down the street and, you looked at the cop, they looked at you, you saw him come out, I mean, I've done it. When I go through certain towns and they pull me over, I do the same thing. I know that the officer is coming out because of something I did. And I mean, I'll just be honest with him. I say, listen, I know, sorry. I'm sorry that I did that. So the main thing I want to bring from that lesson, following up on the what to do with this when stopped by the police, is to make sure, please, that your encounter is successful, making sure that you go home, making sure that your children go home and survive that encounter. Unfortunately, in these times, there are imperfect people everywhere. There are people who, some people have issues. Some people are dealing with things. And, unfortunately, law enforcement is not exempt. A police officer can have a bad day. Police officers are human, too. One of the things that we find that most police officers, when they do get in trouble, it's just not that they come to work that particular day and that they just decide they're going to go up and mess up. Usually it's some things that have been compounding on them over and over and over that they've been dealing with. It could be a divorce issue. It could be a family issue. It could be someone dealing with an officer dealing with sickness in his family. It could be the officer dealing with sickness. It could be any type of issue that the officer himself is going through or experiencing. And unfortunately, some events might trigger and things just go left. And that can happen. You're human. You know what I'm talking about. And officers are no different. We don't put officers on a pedestal. They are human beings. They are public servants, just like everybody, every other profession. Doctors have bad days. Nurses have bad days. Sometimes you can be in a doctor's office or be in the hospital and the doctor comes in and he or she is just not the most pleasant person. And this is a person that is charged with saving you or helping you get better. So we want to make sure that we keep that in mind when we're dealing with police officers as well. I want to look at some of the questions that we have because I see Abdul Rashid is on, and he said that traffic stops, people do not realize for most how dangerous policing is. And that's true. And then his next statement, he said traffic stops are one of the most dangerous stops because you do not know who is wanted until you gain control and also identify the suspects. Now, he's absolutely right. And I will tell you that being a police officer working in the auto theft task force, if you watch the cop shows, you saw the one they made, Jack. That was the unit I worked in as a detective. And in those situations, if you go back to the early auto theft task force, the auto theft task force was initiated because there was a series of stolen cars that were in Newark. Newark was the car theft capital of the world. If you remember, those of you who live in Newark, you remember, if you had a Honda, it was gone. I don't care where you put it at. You can lock it up in your yard. For somehow they must have had a crane or something. They picked the car up and took it, and we were always chasing Hondas. And what happened was they were going into Union County, stealing cars with stolen cars from Essex County. So the Union County prosecutor talked to the Essex County prosecutor, and they formed this unit to go after stolen cars. And a lot of times we found that a lot of these cars were felony vehicles, what we call felony vehicles. Felony vehicles would be cars that were stolen cars that were used in the commission of a crime, whether it be a shooting, assault on an officer, a robbery, kidnapping, whatever. So when you're pulling over a stolen car, you don't know what you're dealing with. You don't know who's inside the car. As a matter of fact, if you ride down 280 going eastbound and you get off at the East Orange exit, you see that there's a sign there saying Officer Daniel Smith. Is commemorating Officer Daniel Smith, who was a Essex County police officer who got killed. And all he did was simply walk up to the car. But unfortunately for him, the car that he walked up to, they had suspects in there who were armed, and they were murderers. And they just, before he even got to get the driver's license from them, they had shot him and blew his brain over the overpass of Route 280. The problem with that case was, and they've changed it since, was that the car was reported stolen in East Orange. But because the officer didn't sign the report, the supervisor refused to enter it into NCIC. So when he pulled up on the car, he pulled it over for a motor vehicle violation, not knowing it was a stolen vehicle, not knowing that it had suspects in there who were going to kill him. And he walked up on that situation, and that's exactly what they did. They shot and killed him. So you're right. The traffic stops are some of the most dangerous police involved acts that they involve themselves with. And until you identify all the suspects, everyone is a suspect. And that's why they do that, because you don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know if you're dealing with, Jack the Ripper or who. It can possibly be that everybody's in the car is okay. Now, of course, you have to use discretion. Officers should use discretion. If you see it's Sunday and you see everyone dressed up and it's around time the church is letting out, you should know that, hey, listen, they probably are church folk who are coming out of church. And you know how church folk are. I'm just being a little facetious and funny here. You know, when church let out, everybody going to the restaurant. All right. That's just what we do. All right. And sometimes we speed a little bit and we get caught out there. So that's what we do. So I just wanted to put that out there. It is, yes, thank you, Brother Rashid. It is one of the most dangerous parts of police work, traffic stops. Deborah Mapson said, most Black men are already afraid when they get stopped. They feel targeted. How should they deal with the anxiety? Take a couple of deep breaths. Do like I do, because I'm a police officer. And even when I was on the job, I had anxiety. I always had to be in control of myself. I was never too cocky to think that because I had a badge on my chest and a gun on the side of my hip that things couldn't go left. So, and yes, and you get a little nervous because it's the authority. It's not so much the police officer, it's the authority. And you know of situations that can happen, especially in this climate. I can understand that. Listen, I get nervous now because I don't know who I'm going to run into. I don't know what this officer is thinking. So the thing is, yes, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and make sure that you listen carefully and be observant, comply, listen to what they're asking of you. And you're right. You don't try to challenge them. Don't do the things you see on the internet. Oh, I have a right to do that. Listen, what you see on the internet, those are things in other states. It's not applicable across the nation. We do not have a national police. So the thing is, for you as a young African-American male, you have to understand that this is the climate. There are issues going on, and you always have to be aware of that, and you have to deal with that as a person who is knowledgeable of that or aware of what's going on. Always be aware of your surroundings. That's the one thing I tell everybody, not only on traffic stops, but even in my self-defense classes and courses. I always tell you, be aware, keep your eyes open, what's going on. All right. We got one more question. I'm going to say, then we're going to bring on our guest. We have a statement from Mustafa Wilson. He said, yeah, but you're a black man first. When you take off that uniform, you're seen as a black man. That's right. Listen, the uniform doesn't mean anything. It's the color of the skin, because some officers don't care if you have the uniform on. They're still going to treat you that way. All right. So we have to understand that it's not really the uniform. Listen, black officers have their own stories. We had that a couple of shows ago when we had racism in the police departments. And we see that we had one guest who was coming on. He was going to share a story with us, and I'll share. I'm not going to tell his story, but he was a officer, identified himself as an officer. He was out of this state, but he was in another state, and he got pulled over by the police. He made a wrong turn. He admitted it, and these officers who knew him because they knew who he was, because he was nationally known for being a police officer, took his badge and threw it in the field. So it doesn't matter about your uniform. This is about the systemic racism that the young people are fighting and protesting about. It affects police too. The reason why a lot of black officers don't engage and get involved in that conversation is because they have no protection. They have no protection. And the fact of the matter is, the reason why we did this show is to inform you, the viewers in the community, that we try to always empower you and let you know the power that you have. You have the power and the ability to change the situation, and it's happening right now, because now most states, most cities are making it a crime for an officer not to tell when he sees something going wrong. That is the blue wall of silence crumbling. Can you hear it? That's what that is. And guess who did that? You did. You have the power. So you have to understand that you have a lot of power. This would not go on in any other community. They would not do this. They would not treat their citizens like this in any other community. But the reason why they do it in our community is because we don't stick together. Let's just talk about it. All right. We do not stick together. We do not come together and bring our solutions. We complain, we march, and they know that, and they sit back and they wait. And then when you shut up, they go back to doing the same old thing. But real change is coming. I said it on the previous shows that the young kids said, you picked the wrong generation, and I'm with them 100%. You did. When you messed up, when you killed this man on public TV in front of everyone, you did not know that you woke up a generation that was going to change the world. And that's exactly what they're doing. So great point, Brother Mustafa. You're right. But I thank you for bringing it up, because now it's segue into what we're doing. I want to bring on our guest before it gets too late, because, he's a busy man. He's a man that's relevant. He's doing things in the community. His organization is called 211 Community Impact. Some of y'all who listen to hip hop and know his name is DoItAll Kelly from the Lords of the Underground. I think he's backstage, but I think he's ready. Can we bring him in now? There he is. That's my brother right there, everybody. Welcome, Brother Dupre, to the set. Brother Dupre, how you doing, man? Oh, we got you on mute, man. For some reason, you're on mute.
There we go. I think we
there
had.
You go. Good.
Up, John? How you, man? You good?
Man, listen, man. We having a good time talking about some cases, man. We took a case. We just talked about a case about a young sister that was pulled over in Tampa City, Florida, and we wanted to show them 2 points of view. But this particular case, I don't know if you saw it backstage. She was pulled over. She was in a stolen vehicle. She got pulled over, and the cop actually, I gotta say, out of all the cases I've seen, he actually did things the right way. He did the right way. She didn't get abused. Nothing happened to her like that. And it was just basically, we did a show last week, what to do when stopped by the police. And we told our audience what not to do during the stop. And we used this case to say, listen, she did everything we said don't do, because she actually put herself in jeopardy. But I thank God that she survived the encounter. She didn't come out of it. She didn't get charged, which I told the viewers in New Jersey, she'd have been locked up and been in the jail, because receiving stolen property is receiving stolen property, regardless of who. Listen, if I walked into the police department in uniform and had something that was stolen, internal affairs would come in to lock me up, saying, "Listen, you being charged with receiving stolen property."
Yeah,
So,
most definitely.
yeah. So, brother, listen, man, I want you to tell. I mean, everybody know you famous and you big time, man. And listen, I'm just so humbled by to have you on here, but I want them to know what you're doing. You're a representative of the hip hop community. You've been active in activism and being out there in the community. Tell us a little bit about your organization.
For everybody out there, man, don't know who I am. My name is Dupre Kelly. If you like hip hop back in the 90s, man, I'm 1/3 of the group, the legendary hip hop group Lords of the Underground. Born and raised right here in Newark, New Jersey. Lived on John Block. We lived on the same block for a time. I think that was one of your properties over there.
My dad, yeah.
Oh, that was your dad's. I mean,
yeah.
Over there on 19th Street, man. And your dad, man, as a police officer, he made sure our block was all right. But that Southwood boy was.
That's right. That's right.
They knew when Arnold was coming around.
Yeah, that's right.
Here, born and raised in Newark, New Jersey, man, you got to learn how to maneuver through this city, man, in so many different capacities. And, going on the road and traveling the world with Lords of the Underground is where I really learned that experience really is a great teacher, man. And, I went to Shaw University, HBCU in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I learned some great things there, but it's nothing like experience. And what I learned was that you had different cities, different states, different organizations booking my group from Newark, New Jersey for entertainment purposes, to galvanize people, to bring people together so they can hit them with a message here and there at different organizations. And I said to myself, why am I not doing, I get paid to do that abroad, but why am I not doing that in my own city? And I just came to my own city and just back to my own city and started to do that amongst everybody and just be hands-on with the residents. And what I wanted to do, I didn't want to use celebrity just to say I was here and taking photo ops and doing that. So I didn't say anything. I just did it with my actions.
Right.
The things that I believed in, I supported. The things that I didn't believe in and I believed that they needed change, then, we became activists, and we just put people together and partner with other organizations to get positive results from and bring solutions to those problems. And 211 Community Impact, which I'm a founder of, I founded with 2 other people. And, it was initially started off of just organizing and making people aware of literacy. That was our mission, and just impacting the community by different things like feeding program, the Eat to Live program, and the Look Good, Feel Good program, where we mentor young men and young women. We did Feeding the Seniors program, where we feed over 1,000 families in Newark. At the present time, we're doing the Beds of Art program, where myself, Redman, and a brother by the name of Kenny Gifford out of the city of Newark, who runs Kenny, and he runs Vault Access now. He has a streaming service called Vault Access. So we got together and bought a bunch of beds, 18 beds to be specific.
Wow.
And we commissioned artists, famous graffiti artists who are right here from New Jersey, to paint these beds. So now, not only will the family, and we kept the families anonymous too, but not only will the family get a bed, but they actually get a piece of art that gains interest, that gains value, and so we've been doing many programs, from haircut programs to after school. We do after school all-stars. We do after school programs in about 6 of the schools here in New Jersey. So what I do is I bring some teachers, I guess, for lack of better words, to come in and instructors to show them how to DJ. We do creative writing with them to show them how to write, not just songs, but poetry, and give them a breakdown of how to break down, how to format songs. And, and just by doing all that, John, it puts you in touch with our next generation, right? It puts you in touch with the youth a little more. So you put your ear a little more to the streets. You have your fingers a little more on the pulse, because these are
are 11-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and they're looking up to their big brothers or sisters who are 15 or maybe maximum age of 20, or that might be their uncle that's 20, and so you kind of get a gist of what the streets are feeling, and you think you're there to be an instructor, and you become more of a therapist to to the little ones, man. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I've had so much success of dealing with the entertainment business, but dealing directly with our next generation, man, is unbelievable on so many different levels. And like I said, it puts your finger directly on the pulse of our city, the future of our city. So you kind of hear the rumblings of what's going on, what they're feeling, what they're not feeling. You get nicknames of the police officers.
Yeah, that's right.
I think your dad had a nickname.
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye.
He didn't miss anything.
That's Southport. They know Hawkeye, man.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You know what? One of the best things I've ever done was go abroad. I was born and raised in Newark like you. We right around the corner from each other. Went to school in Newark. And it wasn't until later on in life when I became an adult and I went over to England for the first time. And, I saw the world differently. And when I came back, it was different. And one of the things, in martial arts, I was like, listen, I want to bring a team to Japan. So I brought a group of young boys to Japan with their parents. And like you said, you became something different. I was the one that they were following. Their parents didn't know. They're like, oh my God, they just don't want to even deal with us. I said, well, I don't want that. I want you and your child to experience Japan. So I had a group of young African-American boys over in Japan. One was a teenager, so he was getting all the attention because the young Japanese girls were into his hair and everything. The other
just for a disclaimer, I love Japan.
Yeah, I mean, it's the culture that yes, it has its problems too, but it was a good place to introduce them to a foreign country, and they did so well. They excelled because it was there that they saw that they were appreciated. The kids to know about what they do in the States, hip hop. They wanted to know about their culture. They were asking them questions. It was so many things that they were doing, and when they came back, all of them excelled. They excelled above the other kids in the dojo because they were exposed, and that's one of the great things that I think with your organization that's very important is that you're bringing exposure to them and showing them things. And the Bible says that the young people have the strength, but the older people know the way.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? We are gray hairs because we know the way. We know. I listen to my children talk, and they have great ideas. I said, but the only thing that's lacking is experience.
That's right. Guidance.
Wisdom. Yeah, guidance. You can't trade. That's the thing you have to have. You can't trade that for anything. I don't care how smart you are. The experience is what gets you through. So I understand, we're tired of the police and this. Listen, I'm telling you from experience. I'm telling you from looking at young Black boys being laid out on the stretchers in the morgue, side by side from things that they shouldn't have died from. I'm telling you from experience, people getting cases that they shouldn't have got because they didn't comply. They didn't do this and do that because they wanted to challenge the police. Every time they would challenge the cops could step it up a level. And that's what I was trying to get the kids to understand. So a few of them understood that and they survived the encounters. But my question I want to ask you is what is the hip hop community? Because, we haven't really heard a lot from the hip hop community about these events. We heard a lot about voter engagement and whatnot, but, without maybe a few, it really hasn't been a lot about from the hip hop community about what's going on across the nation. And I want to know if you can shed some light on what you're hearing or what you hear people doing that we don't know. Because I know some people deal with it behind the scenes. They don't want to be out front with it.
Yeah. To be honest, man, I had this conversation last night with a couple of days ago, I had it with Sticky Fingers from Onyx and my boy Tash from the Alcoholics, the hip hop groups, and a couple of other DJs that were from around the world. And I think that you have to show your proof of purchase of who you are as a hip hop artist right now. Right. And the reason that you're not hearing from the hip hop artists like we should be hearing from it, or like we used to hear from it when it was Public Enemy in the 90s and all of those people, is because they haven't been living their truths. They've been speaking nonsense. Not that they haven't been selling records. They've been selling records, but they've been selling nonsense. They haven't been selling uplifting things. Right. So now that it's time to uplift, they don't even know how. Wow. So now they have to revert. Our elders, our media have to revert to the people that they have been pushing away. Right. You know what I'm saying? So the media, they don't support the elder hip hops because they say hip hop has an age limit. So they don't support the elder artist, and the elder artist who has the wisdom, who has the experience, who has the know-how. They've been pushed away from the media. So now the media needs them because of their voice. Right. Got their voice. And now they don't even want to support the media because they're like, well, you couldn't hear my voice before when I was yelling it to you. So go get the artists that you support. But when you go get those artists have nothing to say, and all they do is damage us even further with the nonsense that they speak, because they're speaking from they don't know. Right. You know? Right. They're speaking from ignorance. Yes. And I'm not saying that these young artists are dumb. I'm not saying none of that. I'm not saying that our young black artists, they just don't know. Right. You know? And you know, sometimes there's a disconnect between the younger artists and the older artists, because you know the older artists can come like this sometimes. Yeah. And then the younger artists, you know, when you're young and you're a rebel, you don't want the elders pointing in your face. Right. You want to do it how you want to do it. But I will say this: the artists, a lot of popular artists, there are young artists that are speaking up, but popular artists are not speaking up because they really can't. How can they come out and say fight the power, fight these people, when they was just saying bees and hoes? Right. And you know I mean? That's a good point. And you know, and that's the whole thing. Like, we have to understand as a community of people that you know, when I was listening, when hip hop first came on the scene, it was, you're right, man. It was like, you know, F the police, and they were talking real. NWA was talking about real issues, experiences. They brought awareness, but what got caught up was that it became an East Coast West Coast thing, when the same issues that were happening in Compton and California were happening in New York City. You had the Abdul Louima, you had all these people, you know, the same things happening. The Central Park Five being falsely accused, being arrested and charged for a crime they didn't commit. You had all those issues, but the problem was, and it happens a lot, that they were able to separate us, divide and conquer us, and the message went like this, and it went down. So now we're here, and this generation, like you said, you know, it's, I really don't hear. I mean, I hear the records, I hear everybody, you know, bopping and weaving and all that, but I don't hear a strong message coming from our hip hop, our young hip hop community. I see brothers like yourself and you know, others who are out there that are saying things and coming together. I see Diddy still think he's young, you know, but he's about our age, and you know, but I do see that he's engaging with the voting process. He put in Revolt together. He's bringing awareness, and they're not going to give him that platform because it's speaking something positive. And the same thing with you. I know that if more people knew about your organization, and listen, you know, because I didn't know. I mean, all the times that I've seen you and known you, I didn't know the detail. I knew you were working in the community, but I didn't know the details of what you were doing. So Kenny, as a matter of fact, Kenny, I got to tell you this real quick. When I was running for sheriff in 2012, Kenny was he was the video guy. Right. He was teaching me how to do commercials. He was teaching me how to get on the loud horn and speak in the community. Kenny was, man, let me tell you, he was just starting, and he was just starting with his company, like blowing up. And Arnold, the Ron Rice and John Arnold campaign was a campaign that was talked about. Like, oh, who these jokers running for office? And you know, they heard Ron Rice because of the name. They knew Ron, but they didn't know John Arnold because John Arnold was inside all the time. But yeah, Kenny used to have me out there, man. That brother, man. Sometimes, man, he's like, no, stand up like this, do it like this, do it like that. But let me tell you, the lesson I learned from him helped me out even to this day.
And then
Ken's a good guy, man.
Yeah, and he's doing a lot of good things for the city of Newark, especially with the film festival and everything.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question because this is one that's going on. What's your opinion when you hear defunding the police? Have you had any conversation with anybody in your community about defunding the police and what that means?
Yeah, we had a slight conversation about it the other day on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
And we were just kind of getting to what that really means, and a lot of people had a lot of good points. And to me, I guess defunding the police is, I'm not totally against it, but it has to be right.
Right.
I don't just want to take money from them from somewhere that they need it to help us stay safe.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if there's some funding, like let's take a look at the funding sheet. Let's take a look at what's funded, what's not being funded. Let's take a look at it, and then from there, maybe some policies and legislation can be formed of what you actually take from there. Because I don't really advocate to take any money from anybody if it's doing good. Now, if it's not doing good for us, then yeah, let's get that and let's put that into organizations in the community that will really police and give community policing in our area. We can focus somewhere on that because there's a lot of things that we fund for police in our community, and then we have these situations where the bad cop makes it bad for the entire whole.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I don't want the one bad cop to say take all of their money away, because then it'll probably get crazier.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But I do think that anytime you effectively make an impact with somebody's economics, it brings change. It makes people think a little different. When they can't put their child in that private school or give them a certain type of schooling, when they can't pay certain bills like a car or their home, or it changes when it changes their economics, it changes their mindset. So when it comes to defunding the police, I am for defunding situations that'll make them change their mindset that is not needed to help protect us. Because if you're getting money to help protect us and you're killing us, then we need some of that back.
And see, that's the point right there, because when they say it's all over the place as far as defunding. When you defunding the police, there's certain areas that you can defund. There's certain areas that you shouldn't defund, because like you need radio cars, you need patrol cars. As a deputy director, I knew they went through police cars all the time. Through chases, through just wear and tear, and we didn't have cars. Big thing like this, didn't have cars. So we had to buy it through forfeiture money and stuff like that. But defunding has to be looked at. So, I just want to get your opinion on that. But listen, man, I know we're about to end the show, but I really want to thank you for coming on, man. You have been an inspiration.
Man, thank you for having me.
Man, thank you. And I pray
you know what, too, man? Thank you, man. Thank you for being one of the good ones in our community.
I'm trying.
And I can really say that, man. I can really say that about you, your father, man, and just your family, of how you guys. I put your family name in the song too, man.
You did.
One time I got robbed. I got robbed. It's on my new album, man. My new album comes out July 10th. It's called Bring the Sun. It's probably one of my most personal albums yet.
Okay.
And I got robbed from my bomber across the street, in front of Bernard's house.
Yep.
And I say that.
Yeah.
I said I got robbed from my bomber once, waiting for Doc. In front of Bernard's house, across from the Arnolds, and they was cops.
Yeah, man. I gotta do that, man. Yeah. So listen, we're gonna have you back another time, man. But I thank you for coming on, man. Thank you. And July 10th, that album comes out, right? Let me know.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
All right.
I got you.
Okay, good, man. Brother. Salute to you. Thank you.
No doubt.
All right, Brother Dupre. Listen, everyone, we thank you for joining in. We want you to say, we want to tell you that what we were talking about with defunding, that's on y'all, okay? Because the police departments, certain areas can be defunding, and most of the defunding they're talking about throughout the country is defunding of the militaristic equipment and all those type of training and tactics that they're using against us. Your tax dollars are paying it. That's why we as a community have to get engaged. We have to make better choices of the people we put in office. We cannot put the same people in office and expect a different result. That's insanity. All right. So the next show for next week, we're going to have some members of the clergy who have been working in the community and working with the police. We want to get their perspective on what's going on. Listen, I'm John Arnold. Thank you for checking in with Protect and Serve. Have a wonderful night. Have a blessed evening. We'll see you next week. Have a good night. Bye-bye.